Why should you invest your savings in property instead of stocks? I'm Laura Jane Baxter. I'm a property investor in the UK, and in this video, we're going to talk through what it's like to invest in the stock market and then compare that with what it's like to invest in the property market with the same amount of money. So imagine you buy a stock in the market. Suppose it's a really expensive stock, so it costs £100,000. Or if you're in the US, you can use dollars. The example will work exactly the same regardless of your currency. To buy that stock, you need to come up with all of the money yourself. It is your money. Now, if you do well with that stock and get lucky, or you've invested well, you might get a 5% return on investment. That is, at the end of the year, you will have 5% more than you did at the start with the funds that you invested. That's a 5% ROI. Now, if you're doing really well, you might match the rate of inflation of the economy. And at the time of filming, not of publishing, this British broadcasting company in the UK set the rate of inflation at 8.7%. So that means if you invested £100,000 in your stock at the beginning of the year, then by the end of the year, that stock is now worth £108,700. That's an 8.7% return on investment. You may benefit from some appreciation in the value of your capital. Your capital is the money that you invested to buy the stock as the value of the stock increases with the economy of that country where you're investing. Now, unless you have some executive power in the company that you bought the stock from, you have no control over the value of that stock. You just sit and wait for the market to do its thing. Now, if you want complete control over the value of your stock, you have two choices. Now, either you need control over every investor and consumer in the market. Literally every single one. Yeah, right, because that's going to happen. Or you need to be directing the business from which you bought that stock. Now, the former is unrealistic, and the latter opens you up to a whole host of new risks. So let's just say you're a passive stock investor, you just buy a stock you're confident in, and you sit and wait and leave it alone. Great, so what next? We wait a really, really long time. Oh, still waiting. So suppose you hold that stock for 20 years. Now that company that you're not directing, remember, may then, to show their appreciation, start sending you a small payment per month. A dividend. It probably won't be very high. And also that depends on the company doing well, growing, and not going bust. So this is the situation when you typically invest in stocks. So you need your own money to buy the stock. You'll be doing well if your stock appreciates in value at a rate that matches inflation, and dividends only come after decades, and even then, they're small. Now, let's look at the same situation when we invest that capital that we started with in property. So again, imagine that you buy a stock, but this time it's a property stock. It's not actually a stock, but just think about it that way. You buy a house, aka property stock. Now your nicely termed property stock costs £100,000 or dollars or crowns or whatever. I work in pounds sterling because I have an understanding of how the British system works. Now, to buy this kind of stock, you don't need to come up with all of the money yourself. Typically in the UK, banks will provide you with 75% of the cash that you need to purchase the house. So now you can get an £100,000 stock for just 25% of that amount, i.e. £25,000 of your own money. In the UK real estate market, house prices double roughly every 8 years. Now, this means that if you do in the UK real estate market, when you purchase, you'll be getting a return on investment of 9.1% every year. But there's a difference between the return on investment that you get, the ROI, and the return you get on the capital you employed, your ROCE. Your ROCE is the actual cash that you put in from your bank account in the first place. Because you didn't invest £100,000, you invested £25,000 of your own capital. So if we take that into consideration, this is now a 29.7% return on the capital that you initially employed. That's enough to make most of the stock market weep. But this is what happens if you know nothing. If you buy a house that's in good condition and just literally don't touch it for a decade.
But of course, that's not what we do. First, we rent it out. Rental income is like dividends. The only difference is that you don't have to wait decades until the company that you're investing with thanks you for investing. You get your dividends very soon after investing. And these monthly property dividends you get are much higher compared to the size of your investment. Do you already see why the UK property market is so much more lucrative and safe than stocks? I'm not finished. With stocks, you have no control over the value of your asset. You just have to sit and wait and hope that consumers in the market like the company that you've bought from. Whereas with the house that you've bought, you are in complete control of the asset. You can upgrade the kitchen. You can add on an extension. You can put in ensuite bathrooms. Adding these things will make the value of the property increase. Why? Because the value of property in the UK is not based on the amount of land that it covers, but on the quality of that property and what it can actually do. And if you know what you're doing and you're working with someone trained, for every £1 that you invest, you can get about 2 back. So unlike buying stocks, when you buy houses, you can force appreciation in the value of your asset by working on improving it. Oh, and then your dividends go up because now you're offering a nicer product to your rental market. So your rental income increases. As a side note, the UK property market has this really nifty feature. Property value is based on the number of bedrooms, not the surface area of the land. And in parts further north in England, commercial valuations allow you to get a valuation of your property based on rental income. So when your rental income increases, that is your higher dividends, which you're in control of, the value of your asset actually increases too. But that's just a bonus I've thrown in. So let's move on. Now, have you still remembered that during this video, while you've been refurbishing your property, the house prices have still been increasing at an average of 9.1% every year? That's still a thing. You might have forgotten. You'd probably forgotten with all of that refurbishing and tenanting that you just did. Or maybe I did it for you while you had a nice cup of tea. Very British. So maybe you're just getting on with your life somewhere in the world, while someone else like me is putting in the blood, sweat and tears for you. Right, so now you're thinking, debt. Oh, that's really scary. This is all great, Laura Jane, but I've now got a £75,000 debt that I need to pay off, and that is a lot of risk. I don't want to put myself in debt when I invest. That's not the point. That's the opposite of the point. How on earth am I going to pay all of that back? Now, are you ready for a trick? It's a secret. Don't tell anyone. You don't have to pay it back. Because this isn't normal consumer debt. This is mortgage debt. Now, if you're investing right, that debt is not a liability. It is leverage on an asset of the person that you're working with, not a liability that could send you broke. Mortgage products in the UK are typically offered on an interest-only basis. This means that to service that debt, i.e. to rent that £75,000 from the bank, you only actually need to pay interest on the loan, not make capital repayments towards it and pay it down. So suppose your interest payments are £500 a month on an £100,000 house. This might be the case on a really bad day in the UK property market. Now, there are 4 bedrooms in your house and you rent each of those out at £500 a month, making a turnover per month of £2,000. This means that with only having 1 tenant in the building, already your debt interest payments are covered.
But Laura Jane, this doesn't sound right, because 10 years from now, when my mortgage term expires, I'm still going to have £75,000 to pay off.
Haven't you forgotten that either you or the person you're working with actually owns the house, the whole asset? And now it's worth far more than that £100,000 that you paid for it to start with, because you've upgraded it through a refurbishment, and so the value went up. Plus 10 years have gone by, and so it will have roughly doubled in value from capital appreciation just in the growth of the economy. So it's now worth £200,000 anyway, plus your refurbishment job. So you're probably looking now at around about £300,000. So how do we clear that £75,000 debt that you're panicking about right now? Now, effectively, what you can do is you can buy the house again. Now, on your 75% loan to value mortgage, that is where the bank gives you 75% of the cash that you need to buy the house, the bank will now give you, in this example case, £225,000. You use that new mortgage to pay off the old one, leaving you with £150,000 of surplus cash, and you still own the house. In short, when you invest in property, unlike stocks, you don't need all of your own money, benefit from capital appreciation that beats or matches the stock market, get paid dividends far higher than stocks, and can force appreciation in the value of your asset. The expression as safe as houses is no joke. And this video is why. So when you invest with someone who uses this strategy and knows how to put all of the pieces together, you know that your investment is safe, and the percentage return that you've agreed on the funds that you employed on your loan, somewhere between 3 and 8% typically, depending on your circumstances, is safe. Okay, fine. So you see the benefits. This all looks great in principle, but you just want something simple. You don't want to go out buying all the houses in the UK. You just want to invest in the same way that you invest in stocks. Hands-free, with little responsibility.
Namaste.